This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
For a limited time at McDonald's, get a Big Mac Extra Value Meal for $8. That means 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, and medium fries, and a drink. We may need to change that jingle.
Prices and participation may vary.
You're listening to United Rugby Rewind.
Hello and welcome back to the United Rugby Rewind podcast, the only URC podcast with reps from all 4 shields. This week, we're going to be discussing a record-breaking weekend in Dublin. We'll be checking in on how the South African franchises have been doing up north, and we'll be looking at how, after 4 rounds, there are no winless teams in the URC. You may have noticed that I am not your usual host. We have had a late, last-minute change to the announced lineup. Our captain, Lee G, has pulled up in the warm-up, so my name is Hugh, and I'll be stepping in for him this evening. The good news is I'm still a Scarlets fan, so I'm still on the side of all things good and just. But I am still joined by the Rugby ABC of Alan, Ben, and Caolan. Good evening, gents.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Excellent. Right, there's lots to get on with, so I'm going to dispense with the normal pleasantries and jump straight into it. Caolan, you're up first, mate. Record-breaking weekends in Croker for the URC. You were there in person. Before we actually talk about the game, what is a match day in Croker actually like?
It's a really weird one because I could go proper like non-Dublin rugby fan Irish person on this. Usually, match day in Croker, so there's a road that runs parallel to the main stand in Croke Park. And it's about 1 kilometre long. And usually that's thronged with fans, just meeting up, getting tickets, taking photos, whatever. Not the case yesterday, because rugby fans are a bit different. They don't usually come to Croke Park. Those who wanted to get in early were in early. As it turned out, with about 20 minutes to go, I'd say it was only about half full. So it was a very different vibe, but it is an amphitheatre of noise. It is an unbelievable venue. Every time there's a game there, you do see at least one tweet of someone being like, I really want to go see a GA match there. Usually hurling. Hurling is the better sport. If you want to look it up, hurling. All-Ireland Hurling Final 2024. Highlights. I'm telling you, you will not regret it.
Every time hurling's on, I get a message from Caolan saying, are you watching? I'm like,
yes.
But I have to. They love it so much, they just call it the game. That's what they call it.
That too. I've embraced the Darragh O'Brien role of sending hurling to the masses, which he seems to do very well. But anyways, it was an unbelievable spectacle. Like, look, there was 80,000 people there. It was sold out. Not everyone showed up. That's going to happen. That's normal. At least they didn't fudge the numbers this time around, like most teams.
Yeah, I saw that because it was a sellout, and then they said the official attendance was a couple of thousand short, and I was like, someone lied, but no, people just. Some of the people who got free tickets for the exec boxes were just like,
That pretty much was part of it. And, it was cold. Like, it was a cold evening. It's big stadium. There's a big breeze that comes in over Hill 16 on the left-hand side as you would have watched. But, no, there was a great atmosphere. There was a great support there. I think it's great to see Croke Park there. My takeaway was I'd love to see a Judgment Day type weekend of Irish provincial rugby. Now, because the GAA own the stadium and not the IRFU, they would have to pay a considerable rental fee, especially if they wanted it for 2 games. But I'd love to see it happen. I just think it's made for it. I think the only fault with yesterday was it was not 80,000 rugby fans. It was 30, 40,000 rugby fans and a lot of people who just went to a big event in Dublin, which is fine because Dublin
Yeah.
is Ireland's capital. But I would love to see a proper rugby festival in there.
I don't think you're ever going to get, unless it is something like a Judgment Day style thing with all four provinces playing. I don't think there's any rugby ground, certainly in the UK, probably not in the Northern Hemisphere, where you're going to get 80,000 rugby fans.
Oh no, very, very unlikely. Unless you went through like season ticket and gave them tickets and so on and so forth. It's the only way you really get around it. Even at that, you wouldn't even get to 60, I'd say, between the four provinces season tickets. But anyways, that's beside the point. Great venue, great atmosphere. Leinster's pre-match entertainment was insanely cringeworthy. So we'll move off from that. It was Mike McCarthy doing the Viking clap, which I thought died in 2016. Apparently not. Leinster have revived it. And the game was also kind of flat, just like the Viking clap for the last 7 years, because Munster just had the 20 minutes from hell. They actually were okay for 60 minutes, not perfect. Probably similar standard performance to maybe what they did against Connacht, albeit against much better opposition. Leinster were good. They were very good in that first 20 minutes. Like, they did what Leinster do. They squeeze penalties, they squeeze errors out of you, they kick down the line, they score. We've been over this before, Hugh. We've had this conversation. That's what Leinster do best. They squeeze the life out of you, they force you into mistakes. Munster were unlucky, the fact that they had 3 different HIAs going on there at one stage. That's sports sometimes, unfortunately. There were no malicious instances. It was just the way it was. Leinster were good. I think that's the thing. Leinster were good. Munster were okay. Caolan Doris was fantastic. And I've said on this podcast, said it in week 1 after the Edinburgh game, Leinster's pulse is Jamison Gibson Park. But I think the only thing that comes close to that is Caolan Doris. He's a level raiser. Like, he was phenomenal. I know the RTE commentary compared him to Richie McCaw. It's a bit too soon for that.
I wouldn't go that far, but I do think he's
a monumental
for
figure, but like,
he's a shoo-in for a nomination of World Player of the Year for me.
He should be, but we've seen them go, like, they do not want to go 2 players from the one nation very
that's
often.
it. I mean, without getting sidetracked, they only nominate 4 these days. Really, all 4 should come from either South Africa or Ireland, but they'll chuck in an All Black and they'll probably chuck in an Englishman as well. But anyway, sticking with this game.
Where did
Doris play it yesterday, Caolan? Was he 8 or 6?
He was at 8, and he was at 8 again. The thing is, Jack Conan came off after 20 minutes. So I probably didn't get a good chance to look to see if Doris was in his typical role or if anything changed. I think Conan played the normal edge forward role, but from blindside flanker. Then he gets replaced by Max Deegan. And I think they just kind of chopped and changed. But typically you'll see Caolan Doris in that midfield. He's not a power number 8, don't get me wrong. I know you're on about having a slightly abnormal sized head, but he's not a power number 8. But he is massively effective. He was really, really good. Gibson Park was excellent. Like, there are moments where you watch Leinster and you think, if Gibson Park isn't in this team, they don't score here, or they don't make the line break here. Like, for Keenan's try and for Lowe's try, Gibson Park picks 2 or 3 really nice passes in the 2 or 3 phases before the try that other scrum halves don't make. Aaron Trotterpong. Have to get that out there. Squidge, if you're listening, we all agree Antoine is fantastic. He was excellent. But after the first 20 minutes, it became a bit of a... Like, I described it as like watching 2 good teams play like 2 bad teams. At times, there was a lot of mistakes. Both sides were a bit complacent with ball in hand, Munster in particular. Look, Munster would be aggrieved that the Calvin Nash try was chalked off. I don't see... For me, it's flat. Look, and
it was flat.
It was flat. But I don't mind the fact that it was called forward. I hate the fact it was called forward as he's crossing the line and it's blown. But I'm not going to talk about referees because I just don't want to do it. For a long weekend, I wasn't home until all hours last night, so I just don't want to do it. That one was annoying. There's Alex Nankfeld makes a great break down the right-hand side. He has to give that ball to Tom Ahern. He doesn't. And then, as it turns out, Tom Ahern fudges the clear out and ends up having to take another goal. So the ball is slowed down by that half a second. When you're a metre out of the line, there, you have to get that right. Your offensive ruck work is one of the most important things that no one talks about. Probably the most important thing that no one talks about. Leinster's scrum struggled. Like Furlong and Porter, fantastic around the park. Like they were really good around the park. Scrum time, they were under a lot of pressure. So it's one that for Munster, I think they'll feel like we really should have got something out of this game, but nothing went right. And I made the point in the group chat yesterday. When Munster's attack goes wrong, it's usually that the forwards don't win their collisions and end up essentially shoveling shit, throwing shitty screen passes that are so prescribed back to Jack Crowley and saying, do something. And if you're Tyke Furlong or Caolan Doris, who were generally the shooters out of the line from the pack of forwards of Leinster,
Think candy from kids, isn't
they
it?
see it.
Yeah.
They are not respecting Munster's ball carriers because it becomes so obvious. There was times in that game it was
It's easy to telegraph.
so obvious. It's telegraphs. It's the exact word for it. And as a Munster fan, it's so frustrating because I've seen it. I don't think it's a system error. I think it's players not winning their collisions and not being, not doubling down and saying, well, I'm not going to lose the next one. Do you know? Because I think that's where if you look at someone like Caolan Doris, for example, yes, Caolan Doris is a world-class player. But if he loses one collision, he's going to win the next one. And that is what swings games like this. Look, it was a 14-point margin. I understand people will look at that and say it wasn't that tight. It really was. Leinster scored 21 unanswered points and didn't really do a whole lot more for the rest of the game. They didn't have to, but they also didn't. Like Kieran Frawley and Ross Byrne both got stints of 10, didn't really get the back line going. It was Gibson Park, Osborne, who I should have shouted out earlier. He had a fantastic game from 12. And Doris. Apart from that, not a lot of standouts on either side. It was just one of those games. It was a typical Interpro. Might get on to like the HIAs in a minute, but that's kind of how the game panned out.
So are Munster in a rut? Because obviously Munster finished top of the table last season. Are Munster in a dip, which is, the annual injury crisis or whatever, or are Leinster really actually showing up this season?
I think it's neither. And this, I'm not trying to be controversial for the sake of a few extra clicks. I think it's neither because I think context masks a lot of things for Munster. No Ollie Jaeger, no Peter O'Mahony, Roman Salno was out, Edward Dog was out, Tom Ahern was his first game back, Jean Plain had been out for a year. That leads to this certain level of jankiness with the pack. And most of Munster's issues are at the pack. I think their backline is actually playing good rugby. And that's why I think Munster look more likely to score from 20 yards than from 5 yards at the moment.
Yeah.
Because the pack are looking small. The line-out has been a complete failure for 2 years. Like, straight up, it has failed. There is system errors there at every single line-out, it feels like. So that's different. But I think Leinster, like, I go back to the Edinburgh game, and I said it. I said, I don't think Leinster win this game if Jefferson Gibson Park doesn't play. I don't think they hammer Benetton if they didn't go full strength because they weren't fantastic in that game. I don't think they get the bonus point here if they even slightly rotate. I think it's a much tighter game. I think what we've finally seen from Leinster is they've front-loaded their internationals, giving them lots of minutes at the start of the season. They'll probably sacrifice an Interpro or two extra because of it, including this weekend against Connacht. And they've just put all their eggs in this basket knowing, look, like, let's just focus on getting up the table because last year they started a little bit slow as well, but they actually got caught. I think they're a little bit more conscious of that this year. They want to, and like Ireland have an extra November game. They've got the Six Nations. It's a Lions year. It was a long season last year. I think Leinster are conscious of all this. They've just front loaded it now. They're getting the results, and there's always something to be said for getting the results. But I don't think they've been fantastic, and that's a good play to be. Don't get me wrong. Like their phase play is basically non-existent at the moment, outside of Gibson Park again, to use his name. But they're getting somewhere. The scrum has had issues, but they're winning.
Ken, I'm going about the Lions squad. Obviously, it's June, July next year, 10 games in Australia, long flight and all that. I think of all the clubs that provide players to the Lions squad, I think Leinster are going to have the highest number of players going.
I think they'll be in double figures.
I think it'll break the Munster record of 09. I think it'll be above 10.
Yeah,
so like that's a factor in Leo Cullen's decision making. If guys are going to be not like it's obviously out of your window. We are thinking, well, we don't want to be flogging these guys and kind of coming back out of it because they're going to play so many minutes for Ireland. They're going to play, a lot of Champions Cup minutes. I think he's conscious of not getting caught because even last year, they had a couple of injuries before the Northampton game in the European semi-final, and they nearly got caught in that game. And I think things like that are weighing in. I actually think Leinster have done it right this year. Front load minutes, get your results. They had a tough enough opening 4 games, I think it's fair to say, bar the Dragons game. They're all tough games on paper.
Yeah, agree with that.
And got the job done.
I think as well to bear in mind is that we've for the last couple of seasons, bonus points have become so important. And they've already, at this point already, even if they lose the next game, they're still not going to be caught by anyone already. So that's 4 bonus points. That's pretty impressive, So
it's an extra win already, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So they've already got essentially 5 wins out of the 4
Of
games.
course, yeah.
So that makes a huge difference because you look up and you see them at the top, and they might lose a few internationals, but if you have like a 10 or a 7 or 8 point gap come last when you've got to send your team to South Africa. And I think we've discussed already. I think they're going to the coastal cities this time round. So they're in a really good way. I think. Yeah.
Did not play the Stormers way last year.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
So they'll be going.
They have Stormers and
Bulls.
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. Down there they've got Bulls and Sharks. Up here they've got Stormers and Lions.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
But so they've got bonus points, and that's so important that decided the top 8 last year. So that's what they've got in addition to the wins. The bonus points is setting them apart. Really,
Munster get like 7 bonus point wins in a row, something like that.
Yeah,
the 7 out of 8. Yeah, only Cardiff stopped us. So good on. Sorry, Cardiff Blues.
Okay, last question from me on this game. Frawley at 10. Is that the new plan from Leo, or is that Mr. Farrell tap on the shoulder? Hey, could you do this for us?
I think it's a bit of both. And again, that feels like a cop-out. I think Tyler Blindell's system will suit Kieran Frawley 10. So there's a little bit of that. Ireland want Kieran Frawley as a 10. I have my own reservations based on how I view the sport. I'm not undermining Andy Farrell. I'm not saying Kieran Frawley isn't a good rugby player. He is. I have my own reservations about having a 26-year-old with 14 starts at 10 for Leinster as Ireland's number 2 out half. That's my own opinion. Sorry, it's 15. It was 14 coming into the Munster game. It's 15 now. He was okay. But I think where Leinster will get away with it, no matter who's at 10, is Gibson Park plays well, Doris plays well. Doesn't matter. It does not matter who's
You can always play 9-men rugby, can't you?
They do. And I think in Ireland, and obviously you're outside the Irish media bubble, and that's fine. We became so critical of Joe Schmidt's playing off 9 game plan that it was like, you play off 9, you're a dirty team, you're a, we spit at you, it's derogatory. Like, how could you do that? Ireland play off 9. Do you know what I mean? It's different because it's Gibson Park. Like, we play the most cliched way of putting it, we play a French game. Our 9 is our general, and that's fine. So I think no matter who Leinster put in there, Leinster didn't lose the Heineken Cup final to Toulouse because Ross Byrne was a 10. They lost the Heineken Cup final to Toulouse because they had no phase play. They had no answers across the field apart from kick the letter off the ball and try and squeeze out a penalty. They had nothing. So I don't think it makes a difference. Maybe they'll stick with Frawley. I still think they could go back to Ross Byrne because above all else, he's a very steady, composed player. I think Kieran Frawley, he will have a couple of 5 out of 10 performances because that's natural. He has not played enough games, whereas Ross Byrne's going to give you 7s every week. So I think I still think it's a live conversation. I don't think you put that much time into Ross Byrne and drop him because Kieran Frawley kicks a drop goal down South Africa in a tour that doesn't involve you.
I know that people are going to hate this, but I can't wait for Geordie Barrett to join Leinster. I'm so looking forward to watching it. It's just got drama. It's got narrative around it to see where he plays, what impact he's going to have. I just, someone who's, isn't really fussed either way, whether Leinster win or lose, I'm just going to be sat there with the popcorn when Geordie Barrett joins. I think that's fair. Why you watch sport for me.
He's a good player. The only thing is, again, it looks like, well, I don't know if Leinster needed to sign a centre. I look at their.
Well, that's it. He might not play in centre. He might play somewhere else.
Mightn't.
He's the ultimate utility back, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
He can play anywhere.
He'll go
really.
6-2, and Barrett will be a part of that. Either
Yeah,
Frawley,
100%.
Osborne, either Frawley or Osborne will be on the bench, I feel like, and Barrett will play either full back or centre.
I predicted a few months ago that Leinster are loading a 7-1, and I will love it. I will love it.
I would love it as well, because the amount of receipts that will be burnt will warm the country for about 2 months. It would be magnificent.
Does anybody else have any takes on this game then? There was obviously a lot of rugby happening pretty much at the same time on Saturday. Anybody got any thoughts on Munster? We talked a lot about Leinster there. Any thoughts on Munster?
Can we move on? The Red Army podcast will have more on Munster showing this week, not an affiliate of the Rap podcast.
Okay, moving on then. So the other big dog of the league, or the other two big dogs of the league, are Bulls and Glasgow. So we're going to go to the Bulls next. The Bulls had a trip up to Swansea. There was something about me seeing Villy LaRue and Curtly Aronson playing a game in Swansea where I was like, what? It's like seeing Brad Pitt at the Co-op or something.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing here? So,
Yeah.
Alan, first of all, what do you make of the Bulls' selection for this tour, essentially bringing all of their Springboks up north?
I think it's a good move. I think they there's been a bit of criticism in the past, hasn't there? Sending a second string team. I think they came over with a squad which had 7 players or 6 players more than the Lions had. They've obviously got the bigger resources and that, but they've obviously loaded up the front. They're planning to get, I imagine they're planning to get wins in the next 3 games because they're pretty, what they would deem winnable games. So, I mean, they're playing the Scarlets next and then Benetton. So they won't take those easy, and then it's Connacht after that. So
and then straight into the autumn tests, isn't it? So,
yeah, and then they're
it's
going,
just acclimatization. Yeah,
yeah. So it's going to be 4 massive games, and it's a bunch of big games that they've got. They look comfortable together, and they look lethal for the first 20-30 minutes of that game. They were all over the Ospreys, and then they tried to sabotage it. Some really silly decisions. Obviously, the red card for Creel. Awesome try by Papir, really, really good try.
Such a good finish. I'll see if I can find it.
Awesome finish. So he has played for the Springboks. I think he has 1 cap for the Springboks back in the 2015 World Cup, I think. Then he got kind of sidelined by other things, but he's a really good player. And
yeah, I was speaking to someone who says they prefer him to Kobus.
Yeah, I mean, we have to see. Kobus has played a lot more games. The thing is, South Africa doesn't really have a problem with scrum halves. We tend to switch them up with wings and that kind of thing. I think Jaden Hendricks is probably going to struggle a little bit now. He's not looking that awesome for the Sharks. It's a bit of a confusing one, really, why some of the teams are playing their Springboks now and some of the teams seem to be resting their box. But the Bulls had a game plan. They did what we expected them to do in the first 20 minutes, and then it's just that discipline and temperament, really. As far as the cards, it's just, I just think it comes down to they were 1 player down, red card, and then they just start doing silly things, and they managed to hold on in the end. But Ospreys, there was a chance there for them, and they just didn't take their opportunities, and it's really unfortunate to see because I think Ospreys are going to start struggling in a minute. Where are they on the table? I think they're like
12th, 13th.
Yeah, 12th. So they're not where they want to be. I think a few of us put them a bit higher at the beginning of the season. I know I definitely did. But to take the Bulls would have targeted that as a win, potentially a more difficult game out of the next 3 that are coming up. So we have to see how it goes. But the Bulls have got a pretty good squad over there. And Creel's going to get banned now for a couple of games, and he's quite a good player for them. He's a bit of a utility back as well. So they're going to miss him. But they've got enough firepower, I imagine, to get another, win or 2 under their belts on tour.
Do you know what I think's behind the selection of getting the full strength team to go up north? I think if you're the Bulls, realistically, how many teams can beat you at Loftus? You're probably looking at Leinster, Munster, Glasgow.
That's it.
And that's pretty much it. And they're playing...
And a South African team.
Yeah, so potentially
not right
one of
now,
them
though,
on an off day.
The Lions could take them, surely.
We struggle with them,
Yeah,
they've got the hoodoo over us.
So,
I don't know why.
So if you got 9 home games, 3 there's only realistically we're saying 3 of them you could lose. And by the way, Glasgow and who was the other one? But Glasgow and Munster, you're both playing away. So it's really only Leinster who can come down and beat you, and Leinster might send a B team to South Africa. That's what they've done every year so far. So if you're Jake White, you're thinking there's a fair chance that no one's going to give us a challenge at Loftus this year. So let's target the away games. If we target our tour games and get the wins on the board there, if we win 5 of our 9 away games, then that's a lot more likely for us to finish top of the log than last year.
And
so
I think that's what they did last year, didn't they? I think because they ended up with 13 wins, didn't they? And a draw off the top of
They
my
kept
head.
second with just
with
one
30.
home loss. And
yeah,
I think they won. I think they lost to Leinster away.
They did. I was at that
And
game, and it was really bad. They sent the B team,
Didn't it? They lost a game in Wales, I think. But I think apart from that, they won most of their other Northern Tour games, if I'm right.
I think they lost up in Glasgow.
Yeah, their record, I saw a stat on the URC site, was that their away record is the highest out of all the South African teams. Was it, I think, 47%? And then the Lions, the Sharks, and then surprisingly the Stormers. I think they were like 29%.
That one shocked me. I actually thought they were better.
We'll talk about the Stormers. Don't you worry.
Yeah, but basically,
Stu has been waiting for this one. He has been waiting to call them frauds.
Yeah, I think the Bulls look pretty good, and I think you're right. I think that if you can win away games, and another thing which became pretty evident over the last couple of years is that you can, teams will come. And you can win the tournament playing a succession of away games. Teams have done it now. They've come to South Africa in finals and they've won the tournament. So they will want to really shore up a potential home semi or home final and make sure that doesn't happen again, because I don't know how they lost that game against Glasgow last year. It was a real upset, and a lot of questions were asked about that.
Speaking about the game from the Welsh perspective, my completely unbiased view on it is the Bulls obviously scored their first 4 tries in basically the first 20 minutes. And I really feel like they just took their foot off the gas from there. They're like, job done. That's what we came for. And just put it in cruise control for the rest of the game. We talked about the cards that they got, down to 13 or 12 for the majority of the second half. I feel like if they'd have played the whole game with 13 or 14 players, they'd have still won. The Ospreys, we talk about the strength of the Bulls squad, and obviously it's amazing. But in terms of like how close that Bulls team is to a South African team and how close that Ospreys team is to a Welsh team, particularly in the forwards, it's pretty similar. That Ospreys starting pack is as good a pack as you will see any of the region's field. So to see them just absolutely get blown off the ball on their own putting was pretty, a bit of a damning indictment, really. And you talk about the attack, it was summed up in the second half for me where Jack Walsh has come on. He pings a ball off the right hand, hits Morgan Morris in the face, bounces back to him, he catches him in front of him, and it's a penalty to the Bulls. And that was with a 2-man advantage at the time. That just sums it up, the Ospreys. We talk about them needing to vary up their attack, and then the stat that gets banded around is that they pass a lot and their forwards pass a lot. But if you look at the stats for the Ospreys' movements, they don't move the ball wide, hardly at all. I think last season they had the lowest amount of movement wide of anyone in the league. So what's happening is they're taking 3 or 4 passes to get to the middle of the pitch. And while the ball is being passed, it just means the defence has got time to advance up. And by the time the guy who's actually supposed to carry the ball has got the ball, he's got a defender in his face. And that's been a problem for the whole of Toby Booth's reign at the Ospreys, is the attack in open play, very unlikely to score any tries. I saw one Ospreys fan on socials had said that their best player was Jack Morgan because he looked like he wanted to be there. And when you've got someone like Dewi Lake in the starting lineup, who is probably the best ball carrier in Wales, it's just disappointing for me. And like the end of the game summed it up when they had a 3-man advantage and they had the ball. It should have been walking up the pitch to score. If you've got a 3-man advantage in the 79th minute in a game of rugby union, you should just be walking up the other end of the pitch to dot the ball down. But it looks like the Ospreys were a player down and the Bulls had a man advantage the way that they were attacking. I think Jack Walsh gets turned over at the end because he's on his own running up 4 Bulls defenders. And they were 3 men up. It's something... We know that Toby Booth has left. It's just the Ospreys, when they're beaten, they're beaten. at the moment. You know, they're either in a scrappy game and they sneak a victory, but if they lose,
It's like
they've
what we
lost the
said
game.
last week, isn't it? Like, don't lose without firing anything, because then you're like, I'd much rather lose with your boots on. Do you know, it's
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
I think as well for the Bulls, I think the getting Butter Chamberlain looks like a smart move from their point of view as well. I'm not sure that the Bulls fans or even the coaching staff trust Huison as much as they did a year ago. I think he's had a few bad games recently.
He's
in the
gone
Currie
back a
Cup.
bit, hasn't he?
Yeah,
And I think
so I don't
Chamberlain
even
is a
think they took
good.
him overseas.
Is he injured or is he just?
I don't think he is. I think they've just left him at home. I think he's a bit. They don't like playing him on artificial pitches. I think he's had a succession of knee injuries, and they always seem to.
I don't think any of their games are on artificial pitches.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the
Connacht
reason, but
game.
I don't think he's injured. I think they've just left him there to keep him in Pretoria or whatever. So, there is a thing when he tours. I don't think some players you get, they just don't tour very well, and I can't remember many performances that he's done in the North which have actually made him, stand out really.
He had a mayor against Leinster last year. That second half, himself and is it Papier that was at scrum half that night? I think.
Yeah, but also in the final
lost
he had a bad
control.
game as well. He was, and also in the semi-final
Yeah.
of the Currie Cup, you guys wouldn't have, but they were 3 men up against the Sharks, as well
Yeah, I
in the
did watch that.
semi-final
Did watch
in Loftus, and he was a complete mess. He missed the kick to win the game. He was knocking the ball on. So and he's a high profile player, and he's he's a very expensive guy to keep on the books. So it's
Yeah.
probably a bit of a concern for them.
What was the story with him where he faked retirement to get out of his
No, he was
Montpellier
playing in
contract?
France, and he was actually he got top 14 player of the year playing at fullback. I
Yeah,
can't remember what team
they
was
won. It was for Montpellier. They won the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
You know,
he
we're
wanted
Racing at the time, no?
I think he wanted to go to one of the teams. I can't remember which team was Montpellier, and then the Racing wanted him. I think they bought him out of his contract, and the only way he could get out was by retiring. And then he came back to Bloemfontein because he's got a bunch of farms there and stuff. And then he ended up going back to play for the other guys. And then there was a whole bunch of legal issues about that. But I will say, South African players this does happen with South African players. They come over here. Khaleesi's another one. He's so much happier now back in South Africa. He's Eben Etzebeth. He wasn't thrilled to be in France.
Toulon, yeah, didn't really work.
I don't think they realize what they're signing up for a small bit. And I don't mean to be condescending. They understand how contracts work. But I think they think, oh, sure, we'll be minded. It's like, no, you sign a foreign player in the Northern Hemisphere, they're your every minute of every
and they
game
want
of
you to
season
learn the French. They're speaking to you in French. They expect you to pick up the culture, the language, and
rightly so, I suppose.
It's fine, but it's not easy for some of the guys. It's been like even the coach. I think Heineke Meyer was over. He came over here to Leicester, and that didn't last very long. So it is difficult to find a South African coach who comes over to the UK and makes a success of it. Johan Ackerman did to a degree, but obviously Frankos
Johan van Graan.
Yeah, they do okay, and then you get some that don't. The Edinburgh coach, so it doesn't always work out. But specifically for the players, there's a whole bunch of players who come over and decide no, and they go straight back, kits off. Although there was probably other things that had to play there as well.
Yeah. Sticking back to this game though, so Willie Leroux, how good was he?
Very good. Yeah, I think he's good.
Isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all know how he likes. He's very
Did he
good
make
at
a
managing
tackle?
the game.
Keep talking. I'm just going to look up if he made a tackle in this game.
He's obviously like managing the game. He's a bit getting on a little bit now, so he's not going to do many line breaks and stuff like that. But a lot of the kicking was pretty accurate, and he keeps the guys on the back foot, especially when you've got guys like Arons chasing down on the ball.
His kick for Arons was so good. Like I don't know what commentators you had, but the commentators that I was watching was like, oh, the kick from Leroux.
So they do like Leroux, don't they?
Yeah.
But he's always been that player. But he's a lot smarter now when he's obviously getting on a little bit, and he's a bit more experienced. So when it comes at fullback, his game management is a lot better than it used to be, and he's obviously cut out a lot of the errors that he used to make. Although he is prone to an error still. Don't worry about that. He's still got that in his locker. But he does manage the game very, very well, and he's probably, locked in for another
No,
year or
he,
so.
he attempted 3 tackles, which is a lot for Villy Leroux. That's
Yeah.
like 3 times more than he normally tries.
Yeah.
What about Kurtley Aronson? We talked about Caolan Doris a second ago as a shoe-in for a nomination for World Player of the Year. Is Kurtley Aronson in that conversation as well?
I don't know how often wings get into this conversation. It's normally going to be a forward, isn't it? Dupont obviously.
All black wingers tend to just win it just by turning up.
Yeah, but I don't know about Aronson. Maybe he could need another year or two. I mean, and he's a lot more popular in Colby's probably more likely to, he's probably just as likely to get a mention due to the fact that he's probably done it for a slightly longer period of time. If you do well in France, the chances are you're probably going to be rated quite highly. I think the French have got quite a heavy sway when it comes to the decisions that get made on those things, I think.
He did very well in France. I think in the space of like 5 seasons, he won 8 major titles.
Yeah, and I think Dupont is, you see him doing line. Yeah, you see him doing line out
sign
throws.
anyone. They chose to sign him.
Yeah, you've got him doing line out throws. He's jumping in the line out. You've got him doing all sorts. And I suppose I'm not quite sure what Dupont is doing at the moment. He's trying to, he's locked his legacy in, but it would be good to see him just really lock down the number 9 call to be like the best in the world because he's so close, isn't he?
Scored a hat-trick in 6 minutes last night, didn't they? Which was pretty impressive.
It was 13 minutes. I know who boasted that it was 6. That's not true. And two of them he flopped over the line from a meter. Still
got a score of them though.
The third try was very, very good.
You give a winger credit if they scored like a hookers. Like how many more tries did they score, and we give them so much credit.
Well, Johnny Matthews got 5 in a game, didn't he? And it was pretty much just rolling over from the back of a maul. So yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm not a Dupont hater.
But overall, I'm pretty happy with the Bulls. I think they're in a good place.
Some people are Dupont haters. There was a bit of something over the weekend that I read.
Yeah.
They went a bit further than needed to.
It's just going to be a recurring thing, I think. Moving on.
We don't need to start. We don't need to get into that fight.
No. Move on.
Does he play in the URC? Well, there you go. So, moving on to the next game, Ben. Glasgow versus Zebra. Champions versus last season's bottom team.
Yeah.
33-3? Is that...
So what I wrote down was comfortable but not that exciting. Then I went and read an article that Hugh Jones was quoted, because obviously he was man of the match and quite comfortably so scored 2 tries. And he put, it was a strange game because nothing really was happening out there. I can't really put it any better than that. It was one of those games where I watched it. I thought, quite looking forward to this Glasgow turn on the flare. They rested Sione Tuipulotu and they rested Tom Jordan. I think that's probably why they weren't as expansive as they have been in their opening 3 games. It was a comfortable win. It was a bonus point win. It was sewn up by half time, but it just was a bit tepid. Again, I didn't really enjoy the game. It wasn't as one-sided as I thought it would be. And Zebra can come out of that game going, we could have probably scored a couple of tries. They had a lot of ball in the 22. Territory was 50-50. Possession was about 50-50 as well, which I was surprised to read. But then looking back, recollections of the game, Zebra were in that 22 a lot, but then it just came down to really basic handling errors, dropping the ball, being stripped, jackals, not clearing outright. And there was probably 8 or 9 occasions where Zebra ran through the phase in the 22 and either ran out of ideas or the ball was turned over. And I think that's going to be their problem, is that they don't have that second, that plan B, that plan C. They don't have the extra pods to come around the outside and just kind of, a bit like maybe Munster yesterday, just very obvious what they're going to do next off the back base of a ruck.
So I just pulled up the stats here. So as you said, Zebra 8 22 entries, nothing from it at all.
Nothing.
5 line breaks each. So like you said, quite even there. Carries, nothing in it. Kicks, well, Glasgow ahead. Post contact meters like 50 more for Glasgow, but that's not that
not
many.
Much over 80 minutes, definitely not. Yeah.
If you look at how many rucks there were, 88 to 85, pretty low. Anything under 90 is low. So yeah, just like you said, not a game where a lot happened.
No. Yeah, I mean, the only things to pick out of it is Franco Smith's obviously going with some quite sort of just testing people in different positions. Like Jamie Dobie's playing at the wing at the moment. Obviously, he usually is the second choice halfback, with him and George Horn. So it'll be interesting to see what Jamie Dobie's kind of role is for Glasgow throughout the season, as well as what it'll be for the Scotland team. Because I think he'll probably go as third choice scrum half, or he goes over Ali Price. I think Ali Price is kind of playing himself out of Scotland contention at the moment. I'm not sure how that's working out. Because obviously got Ben
There'll
White.
be an opportunity for Scotland, and again, I know we're not the Autumn Nation Series podcast. Rewind, but there would be an opportunity there. They play Portugal and they play in. Did they play Fiji or something like that?
Fiji first, but
Fiji, South Africa.
You have to play your first team against Fiji these days.
You have to rotate a small bit though. Like you can't be using.
Can't be losing at home to Fiji. Says a Welsh fan who's pretty sure his team is going to lose at home to Fiji.
Yeah, but like still, it's like Scotland should rotate a small bit, and they should give chances in that Portugal game as well. Like, you know, I'm not one to defend Scotland. Don't make me defend Scotland here. That's Ben's job.
Thank you. I'll do my best to continue in that vein. Yeah, I think just Dempsey and Darge are brilliant. Jack Dempsey is an absolute machine at number 8 at the moment, and Rory Darge on the open side is equally so. They're two very, very powerful players in that Glasgow pack and make the ball tick. I think the issue with Tuipulotu being rested, and I did predict this, that Tuipulotu and TJ Tom Jordan were going to be rested, is that with Stafford McDowell, you've just got a bit of a bully at 12. You don't have someone that can play make. So I think Glasgow lacked a playmaker outside of Adam Hastings. And Adam Hastings is feeling his way back in after 3 slightly difficult seasons at Gloucester. It didn't really work out for him. I watched him sort of, play 10 against the Sharks in the Challenge Cup on the Friday in May at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. He wasn't fantastic that night either, and I still think he's got a few gears to go for it. But at the moment, Glasgow are just doing enough to win, but they haven't had to really break their necks yet, apart from the opening game against Ulster. The 3 wins they've had have been fairly routine, not very exciting. But I think Frank is probably going to be happy with that,
Yeah, easing into it. Is their attack better this season, though? I have to say, from the tries that I've seen, I've not really sat down and sat through a whole Glasgow match, but I have to say that the highlights that I have seen, their attack looks extra sharp this season.
Yeah, I think they score tries from, and this is the contrast with Edinburgh yesterday, is that Glasgow score tries from all over the field. They're quite happy flinging out wide. George Horn did a really good pick off the base of scrum on Friday night and just obviously burnt down the blind side. Very unlucky not to score off that. So they've got multiple options from scoring, I think, and yeah, you saw that in plentiful supply on Friday, the way they scored tries. Hugh Jones is a brilliant line breaker. He will go around people for fun. And you could obviously, George Horn's on the screen at the moment. You can just see he's a very nippy scrum half. He's got quite a lot of power in him, so he's good at taking the ball into contact for a 9. But yeah, again, Glasgow they're doing enough. They're doing enough at the moment. Probably a bit like Leinster, I think, to a point. They're just doing enough.
Yeah, Hugh Jones has been one of those players. And Caolan, I'm going to get you to come in on this because you're our Scotland hater. So this is a Scotland hating point. Hugh Jones has been one of those players, classic Scotland player, plays well against England and then doesn't do much else for the other 364 days of the year. Starting to get a bit more consistency into his game now, starting to look good on a week-on-week basis, which he hasn't done before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think he is one of those players where certain players just need a run. They just need like a run of games, a run of form. I think he's proven that. He was moved around. He was 15, he was 13, he was 12, he was on the bench, especially around the time when he left Glasgow. He was kind of playing a little bit of everywhere. He got injuries. But I think the last 2 seasons, I believe he is the player that with the reputation that Tuipulotu has. Where I just switched the reputations is my only thing with the two of them. I think Jones is such a fine player, and 13. There's not many great attacking 13s in rugby at the moment.
A good 13 is a really special player.
Yeah, and he's a very good 13.
Yeah.
They're the Scotland 12 and 13, and I think they both go on the Lions tour next year as well. I think
they definitely both travel. Less injury, they definitely both travel. I think it's them two. I think it's Aki if he keeps at the trajectory he's going. Otherwise, it's another Irish centre. Another Irish centre will travel, and then it's probably between Lawrence and someone else, maybe. I was going to say Slade, probably not. Lawrence and someone else will probably squeeze in there. But anyway, not a Lions podcast. Not those Lions. The other Lions.
But the players are thinking about it. It's quite clear. I think it's You have to. Yeah. What else did I write down? Yeah, just seemed very one-dimensional from Zebre. I want to try and make this even because obviously Zebre were also playing this game. And again, just they need to go away and think, how do we best use our territory? Because they did have a lot against the team that won the title last season, who they would not expect to beat.
It's
And
exactly
they
the
did
same
actually,
against Cardiff.
they did
Exactly the
play
same
well.
against
They
Cardiff.
weren't bad. It's just its execution was ever at the moment, and unfortunately, it wasn't there. And there was a couple of times they really did get into very good opportunities to score. It was like meters out, and Glasgow were just like, "Nah, we're not giving up a try tonight, boys." Like, it just wasn't happening, and Zebra just couldn't get over that mental obstacle. I think of just trying something a bit different. It was just kind of pick up and drive, and Glasgow eventually just forced a turnover 3 or 4 times the last sort of 20 minutes. But
That's probably a player quality thing, and Zebra is kind of in a very catch-22 thing of like, oh, if they just had some better players, they would probably win a lot more games. Which I know sounds incredibly,
but they're not going to stick
obvious,
around there, are
but
they? Yeah,
yeah,
but
they've been told by the FIR that they need to cut costs, so they're in a very tricky spot of they need to improve to prove that they are improving. So they need to get results, but they're not going to get results until they get better players. But they're not going to get better players until the results improve. So they're just kind of stuck in this difficult place.
And for all the stats, it doesn't get you a win, right?
No,
they did have
that.
the stat. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's just one of those things where it was just a very narrow attack focus from them, and not that ability to be creative once they got into 22, which, as you say, did on 8 occasions, which is more than probably twice as much as I would have expected from them playing Glasgow away, because Glasgow are very, very tight defensively at home. Last season conceded very few points, and yeah, doing the same so far this season. But I think, yeah, like I said, like we both said, Zebra just need that little bit more extra attacking us. But if it's a funding issue, then that's above them. It's not within their decision making and their sort of management apparatus. So it'd be a very hard position to be in. And I certainly don't have I don't envy that. Certainly have my sympathy. Yeah.
So Alan, any thoughts on Glasgow so far in terms of are they looking like a team that can retain a title for you?
It's a difficult one. I mean, they won it last year, which was surprising to everybody, and it's going to be difficult to do it again. But I think they're doing, like the guys have already said, they're kind of doing what they need to at the moment, and there's been slight improvement. It's good for them to have a comfortable win at home. And, like we said already, bonus points, home wins, those are the most important things to get you in a good position come the last third of the season. So whether they can win it, I think I'll probably give them as much chance as I gave them last year. So I don't think they're in a worse place than they were. So it's going to be tough, though. It's going to come to those big, obviously the Bulls and Leinster. Depending where you are, it's all about home field advantage and taking it from there. But Zebra do definitely have work to do.
I think the key thing for Glasgow is promoting Scott Cummins to that lock leader that Richie Gray is now leaving behind when he probably goes to Japan after the autumn test. I think that's the key thing for Glasgow is how do they manage that transition.
By all accounts, they're getting Alex Schrader off the Scarlets, and he's a hell of a player. He's a hell of a player.
Yeah, I did read something about that. People, Welsh fans, not particularly happy, are they? So,
look, if the Scarlets are losing a hell of a player. Sticking with yourself, Ben. Edinburgh versus Stormers. Now we'll make this bit about Edinburgh first, and then we'll get our teeth into some Stormers chat. So, Edinburgh. Were we all wrong? Sean Everett is the saviour after all.
Jury's still out. Very much still out. I think first half was interesting to watch in that we very fast out of the blocks, like rocket up the backside, fast out of the blocks yesterday. I think they'd been given a tough week, deservedly so. Ben Healy, very sadly, and I don't know why all the blame's been pointed in his direction. I think it's necessarily fair or just obviously got demoted to the A team, went off to play Bath away yesterday, sort of 3 o'clock, very quiet. But Sean Everett was a little bit unnecessarily scathing in public comments. I think some of those maybe you'd hold those back.
Scapegoating, doesn't it?
And I don't think it's fair on him. Yeah.
How is it Ben Healy's fault that they conceded 48 points in the first half?
The directionless comment is very. I don't want to be that but the pundits who'd be like, oh, it's just the attack. They just say, yeah, attack. You ship 50. It does not matter. Like, Dan Carter could have been your 10. It does not matter.
It wouldn't have mattered, yeah.
Once. Like, direction was not the issue. He was looking for a fall guy, and I think he looked at halfback. Now, I don't think Ben Healy and Eddie Price were playing well, don't get me wrong, but he looked at halfback and said, yeah, no, you're gone.
There
And
were a
like
lot of other players that weren't playing very well either. They looked pretty like disjointed,
Well,
didn't they?
I'm going to controversially say I think we should let Van der Merwe go at the end of the season, and I'm quite happy for him to go.
Linked to
France.
La
I just
Rochelle.
don't. La Rochelle, Montpellier,
very
Lyon,
well La
and
Rochelle.
Bayonne. I
Well,
think.
sorry, a very La Rochelle like signing in some ways. They like that inside power winger, but very un La Rochelle like in other ways because bar Skelton, they haven't really splashed the cash massively, whereas Duhan's going to be asking for good money.
So I think there's been a lot of players. I follow French rugby reasonably closely, and there's been a lot of Sonia Tuipulotu, someone we spoke about earlier, has been linked to a move to France. So's Duhan van der Merwe. So has George Ford today. And I think it's just that time of the year. Agents are like, my player could move, and where's the place that has the money? France. So like, he's got offers from France, and then I think I don't know. I think Duhan van der Merwe is a flight risk. He moved to Worcester, remember, that one time. That was weird. But I think a lot of these
him
rumors that we're
and
seeing
Rory Sutherland both went to us at the same time, didn't
Yeah.
they? Yeah, I think with Duhan, I was looking at his stats yesterday. 4 law carries, 1 line break for a game when we scored 38 points. He was very anonymous yesterday. Doesn't really seem like he wants to be there. Sean Everett's given credence to these moves to France. He said, "Yeah, you must have been reading the same article I was reading Duhan about these 4 teams being in from." I think he goes next. I think this is his last season in Edinburgh shirt. I just don't think he's going to stay beyond the season.
Did you ever watch that interview with what's his name? Ryan Thingy, the Glasgow player.
Wilson.
Yeah,
Yep.
Ryan Wilson that he did with Duhan, the funny one. And he asked, what do you like about Sean Everett? And Duhan van der Merwe goes, he gave me a week off when I asked for one. Like, I think that kind of tells a bit of a story about him. I'm not trying to assassinate the guy's character, but
it's an interesting response to a bit of a softball question, is it, from a friendly analyst, I suppose, friendly pundit. But I think he's very. I don't know if you're building a team. I think Duhan, on his day, we've had this conversation, you and I, when we first did a podcast end of last season, we've had the conversation since the preseason. He's a marquee player, but when you're looking to pull that victory out or someone to stand up and be counted at club level, I just don't think he does it on enough occasions. He's not someone you can rely on. Defensively, He's still questions over his defensive technique. I think for the size of him, his tackling technique is not brilliant. And you'll turn up for Scotland in the Ultimate Nationals and probably score, got the tries every game. And he'll probably do the same in the Six Nations. Love scoring against England, much like Hugh Jones does, which I'm more than happy to see happen. But when it comes to a club level, there's definitely a degradation in his sort of like. I think it's a mental thing. I think it's his ability to play in front of 6,000 fans as opposed to 60,000 fans. I just think there's a lack of desire there from him. And if he wants to go to France, I think we just free up a wing space. And Jake Henry's at Coventry this year, see how he gets on, bring it back into the side to start, developing that potential. Because Duhan's not going to get any better playing for Edinburgh. Like, he's not. He's probably the finished article. Now it's whether he wants to turn up and play, which dictates his input, his output, his ability. It'll be his decision. I don't think he can get any better than he currently is. So if it frees up a bit of budgetary space to start thinking about bringing wingers through, then fair enough. And I think going back to the game itself, the first 20 minutes straight out of the blocks, Patrick Harrison again scoring, continuing his form from the week before. Grant Gilchrist 2 tries in 2 games after not scoring a try in 6 years. I thought that was quite impressive.
Great for Grant Gilchrist fantasy rugby owners.
Yeah, great for Mrs.
Mrs.
Gilchrist, his mum, who's got the only person with him in her fantasy team.
And me.
Yeah, probably. Oh, you got him in, have you? Oh, well done.
I do. I also captain Max Wane. I don't know how that went. I actually don't know how that game went.
Talking about the back row, and with Hamish Watson out, Ben Muncaster moving to the 7 position yesterday, and that was his first start at open side. He was unbelievable yesterday. Unbelievable. He's had a real torrid time the last couple of years, really bad injuries. 2 years ago, I went to the Cardiff away, because we played Cardiff away 2 seasons in a row, because obviously they changed the structure last season. So it wasn't last season's game, it was the season before, so it'd be October 22, I think I went. And he was man of the match that day, and he was absolutely outstanding that day. And we just haven't seen enough of him. I think he had 3 starts last season, but yesterday, him and Jamie Ritchie were on a boat like a piece of string. Jamie Ritchie, a little pop pass inside, no look pass, which is quite impressive for a forward to be doing. Ben Muncaster broke through and then obviously scored a try sort of at last knock-ins, but he was incredible yesterday. Just unstoppable player, and he's young. And he's obviously Scottish, and he's someone that if we need that extra back, extra sort of back row player, then he might come into Scotland contention. It's just staying injury free, but he was fantastic yesterday. Darcy Graham scored a try. He's been anonymous so far this season. He's very anonymous against the Lions. We talked about that last week. Yesterday, stood up again, scored a difficult try in the corner. Slight question about whether there was separation or not. I think there probably was enough there to say there wasn't, but on another day, if it's not given, it would have stayed not given. I think
I think it's all right. I mean, at the end of the day, someone else would have scored. I mean,
Yeah,
in a game
it's one
like
of those-
that, Edinburgh, I'm surprised that Duhan didn't score a try because at the end, the Stormers were just shipping points, weren't they? So, there's an opportunity for everyone.
Duhan just didn't want the ball yesterday. Four carries
No.
for a winger. It's a one line break, and I think I remember the line break. It wasn't in an attacking territory. I think it was around halfway. But very few. I think it was 4 line breaks on either side yesterday. It was attritional at points, and the best example of the attritional nature of the game yesterday was at 20 minutes before half time, where the Stormers had the ball in the Edinburgh 22 for about 18 of those 20 minutes. It was non-stop, constant turnovers, constant penalties, etc., etc. And I think Edinburgh managed to weather that storm very, very well, which I
thought it was quite impressive the way they stood their ground and were defending. Then I did think the Stormers were going to score, and they just held them out. It was really impressive. I think it was a different Edinburgh than what we've seen so far.
It was, and that's why I wasn't expecting it, because we shipped tries for fun against Lions, the week before, and I think that defensive sort of 20 minutes where it was literally just camped on the try line, just repelling attack after attack after attack, which I was pleased to see, because that's the area where I was really concerned about from the first 3 games. It's that we can see too many tries. But a bonus point win yesterday. We've already got more bonus points than last season combined together, I think. And we're up to 5. I think we got 4 last season. So at least I wouldn't say we've turned a corner. I still think there's a lot of work to be done. Mosesi Tuipulotu I think he's starting to kind of understand the Northern Hemisphere game. I think, again, first 3 games, he missed the Bulls game with a hamstring injury before playing against Lions. But I think he's another player that I think he's starting to bed in now. Matt Scott, again, very good yesterday. I think he showed maturity that he didn't show against the Lions. So I think it's going to depend on these 2 Welsh games coming up against Cardiff next Saturday and Ospreys the weekend after. I think that's when we'll get a proper sort of understanding where Edinburgh lie. But I think yesterday was a deserved win. Very good defensive output, attacking output was there, apart from Van der Merwe. I don't want to criticise him too much, but he was the only player of that starting 15 yesterday. Didn't really show up. I think the other 14 were in from the start and very powerful.
Yeah. So, Alan, Stormers, not good.
No, definitely not.
I'm not going to say that I called it and I'm right about everything, but I was right about this. What's going on from your point of view?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think John Dobson was quite honest in his assessment after the game that they need to improve. It's hard to see where they're gonna get a change. Like, I think we were talking the same thing with Edinburgh a few weeks ago. The games that they've lost, they've seemed to have capitulated a little bit. Damien Phillips are at 10, and these are double World Cup winner, and he was awful. He
did nothing.
No, he was just knocking the ball on. Warwick Caolan, I know they have question marks over him as well. Their forward pack were just their ball handling, body position going into contact, and where you would normally expect their line out, all the areas you would expect your big forwards to be, dominating contact, they were nowhere. They weren't winning any of the collisions. Their handling wasn't very good. And then when the ball did get out to Damien Willems, it was very frenetic, disjointed. It was a just terrible performance, and they're deservedly bottom of the table. I'm sure there'll be a slight upturn when they get to Cape Town, but I can't see them beating Munster next week. It's going to be really, really tough for them to get into the top 8 from here. I think they've over the last couple of years since they've won, they've managed to lose the odd player here and there. They need Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu back, and I mean, they're losing players, through injury, and they just have to get better. But it's one of those situations they don't have the squad size that the other, the Sharks or the Bulls. Not that it's helped the Sharks at all, but not that the Bulls have. And they have to rely on Cape Town. They need the fan base to get up, and they need a bit more structure to their game. I don't know how else to say it. It's just very messy, awful, and this is exactly what they've been doing for the last couple of weeks. There's been no improvement, so I don't know where you go really.
The lineup performance from both teams was bad yesterday, and we really. I think there was a stat that Mossy, Chris Patterson picked up yesterday in the commentary, was that we had one of the best lineup percentage success last season and this year is way down the bottom. And I think both sides yesterday, it wasn't a windy day. Like there was no excuse
and this
for
is
the
the
amount
thing.
of
Like
line-out
anytime
turnovers.
you're struggling, we all kind of can say that if you get your set piece right, you start off there, and then you just work on your defense. And I mean, for the first half, they seem to be on defense at least. They seem to be cohesive to a point, but then the second half it just fell apart again. And as a South African team, this idea that you've got to be playing running rugby and you've got to be tossing the ball around and offloading and contact, it's just for the team like the Stormers, it's just not going to cut it. They've got exciting backs, they've got really good strike runners, and they're just not using them. They're getting the ball to them in right up against the touchline with no space and expecting them to work miracles. Damian Willemse gets the ball, sidesteps to no one, and then knocks the ball on or gets tackled. It's stopping with, our playmakers are not making any plays. So
he's not.
Your return kicks were bad yesterday as well. There was one particular one, Ross Thompson skipped into space, and it did take a bit of a bobble. I understand that, but professional player then knocking it in and then knocking it out with his foot on the line, and that just summed up the stuff. Second half was just. I thought it was as bad as our first half against the Lions. It was embarrassing. It was like, are they down tools? I think maybe they just got so knackered after the 20 minutes before half time of not being able to, come in because they should have come in at 40-0. I think it was a 40-0 half time. I know that try was chalked off, and it had to be because of Darcy Graham. He wasn't released with it in his knee. It clearly touched the ground. So Ben Whitehouse was right to call tackle. Hadn't done it in time.
And if you had a team and you were struggling, the question then becomes, okay. So Damian Willemse is not a 10. We can agree, probably inside centre, fullback. Warwick Gallant, get him off the field and back up, get some more confidence. And then you're bringing in Marnie Libok. We all know that he's a good strike runner and a good fly half, but then you got to make sure you're getting your kicks. So who's kicking your penalties if you're going to try and be a bit more conservative in your gameplay? Do they have a tactical kicking game? Are they going to get these 3 points from penalties, from scrumming, or it doesn't look like it.
That perfectly sums up the Stormers' problem, is that they have great players and they've got good individual things about their game, but they don't join up. There's no overarching strategy. Yeah. So there's exactly as you said, great scrum. If they get a scrum penalty, what are they doing with that? Are they kicking for 3? Because their only reliable goal kicker is Sasha. And if you've got Damian Willemse and Manny Lebok in your squad as well, you've got a headache of where you're actually going to play Sasha.
Manny Lebok's not coming back to Scotland for a few years after that game at Scotstoun.
God,
he's flying to Scotland.
Part of him is still there. Part of him is still on that list.
The 0 from 4 in that quarterfinal.
And they're playing Munster next week, and I cannot see how they're going to win that. Munster are going to be so up for that game, and this is a rivalry which is already in the early days of the URC. Bulls and Leinster, Munster against the Stormers. Those are epic games, and Munster are going to have an awesome. I believe
scared them based on what we've seen. Like the context of the Munster game is they were underpowered against Leinster. Does the Stormers scare them? The Stormers aren't the biggest South African team. They're on the worst run of form. Their squad looks a little bit light at the moment, not physically, but just in terms of depth-wise. Munster shouldn't scare them. But the same that can be said about Munster needing a response. Stormers need it doubly because it's been a poor start to the season. It felt like they just had to get to December.
Bottom of the table at the moment.
But now it feels like, oh no, they need to win now. Like it's not about just getting to December and getting everyone back. No, they have to win now.
And my wife's a Stormer, so she was sitting there, and you can just imagine like hard work for the rest of the evening with the Stormers playing like that. Not entertaining.
The Stormers fans feel it. I've spoken to a couple of Stormers fans, and if the team's not going well, they're like, I refuse to acknowledge that the game of rugby union exists.
Yeah, Cape Town's her spiritual home, I think. Yeah, and she's she wasn't very happy at all. So yeah.
So I'm going to move on now to.
What can I just bring up one quick thing just before we move on? Sorry. Just some news for the week that Glasgow have announced that the first leg of the 1872 Cup is going to be at Hampden, which I think is quite cool this season. National Football Stadium. So be interesting to see how they sell out.
A really good stadium too, and it's better. Like there was always the question mark with Murrayfield is when Edinburgh were there in particular, but for these games, is it too big? Like it is massive. Hampden is just so on top of you. Like that's going to really help the atmosphere there. Like it feels like you're on top of the players. Whereas in Murrayfield, the one criticism, like a lot of rugby stadiums, can feel like you're miles away from the action.
There's a lot of
Now,
pressure on the promoter. There's a lot of pressure on the promoter because Glasgow have got to go from 6,500 to I don't know how many.
60,000.
Yeah.
It's
the
close
only
to
thing I will
60,000.
say, if you want to know what it's like to sit in a stadium and feel like you're miles away from the action, go to a GA stadium where the dimensions are it's 130-meter pitch, and you have to fit a rugby field in the middle of that, and you are miles away.
Interesting that you say that, because I was looking at the Lions schedule. I know this is not a Lions podcast, but obviously it is at the end of the season. It's something that we're all going to be looking forward to. But the second test is at the MCG, and I don't understand the
South
logic
Africa's
behind playing a
struggle
rugby
there.
game in a cricket ground because it is so far away. You're so far away.
Selling well, though.
I get it. But
Lions
I
stores
watched.
always do,
But I watched
especially in
the,
Australia.
I think there was a rugby game at the MCG 2 Southern Hemisphere summers ago,
Yeah.
and it was just remarkable how far away you are at any point on the ground to not really be able to see. You're still going to see the game, right? But it's that lack of up close and personal that, NFL game today at Tottenham Stadium, like it's so close in there for that Jaguars Bears game today, and it was like a fantastic spectacle. But I just worry about using cricket grounds for rectangular sport. I'm not sure of the logic behind it. Melbourne has got a number of stadiums. I understand the MCG is one of the biggest stadiums in the world, if not the biggest outside of South America. And I understand it, but I don't know how I feel about it, just from a personal perspective. And I think, same with Murrayfield. Like sometimes for a club game, it doesn't always get the sort of the atmosphere going. But I think Hampden will. Hampden's got that, very old school stadium. Hasn't had a lot of work done to it recently, so it'd be interesting to see a rugby game being played there for the first time in decades. I can't think the last time a rugby game was played there, so it'll be interesting.
It is a risk though, like I said, a lot of pressure on the promoter to get those tickets shifted.
Absolutely.
We do need to move on to the next game though, which
Apologies.
is Cardiff versus Scarlets. Scarlets getting their first win of the season. Obviously, I'm delighted being a Scarlets fan. Nervy game. So you guys spoke about it on the pod last week and made me laugh. The missus asked me if I was okay twice during this game, and I wasn't. I wasn't okay.
Why didn't anyone ask me this question on Saturday? Nobody asked me if I was okay.
I couldn't watch the last 5 minutes. It was too much. I was too stressed. I do a Scarlets fans podcast as well. I couldn't face trying to pick the positives out of not winning that game, because for people who didn't watch the game, people don't know, Scarlets were down to 13 men for the last 10 minutes of that game, and we were a score ahead. Now, the way that Callum Sheedy is kicking, I felt so long as we make him score in the corner, we'll be okay. But it was, I just couldn't bring it in myself to have to talk about it if we lost, and thankfully we won. Without being like a passion merchant, just the way that the boys fought for each other, especially when down to 13 men. For all of the stick that the coach has been getting and things, that's a team that has bought into what the coaches are asking them to do and are fighting for each other. And kind of to an extent, as a fan, that's all you can ask for, really. It's a bit scrappy, a lot of mistakes, penalties in our own half. Sam Lousey's gone back to being a penalty machine. We're just inviting. There was I was raging at halftime because Tame Plumtree gets the ball back inside off Blair Murray. He thinks he scored. I think he scored. Everyone in the crowd thinks he scored. Millard comes out of nowhere, cuts him in half, and Cardiff turn the ball over. Scarlets then give away 3 penalties back to back to take us from their 22 to our 22. Then we give away another penalty, and under advantage, they spin it wide and score in the corner. I was furious. But thankfully, we got back in the game. Gareth Davis, record try scorer in the URC for a scrum half, now on 54 career tries in the league. Pretty darn good. The centre partnership is starting to work together really well as well. Towards the end of last year, we had Eddie James and Johnny Williams playing together, 2 12s, and it was very much like we had 2 12s. They were getting in each other's way. He wasn't sure who was doing what. They've clearly worked on it a lot during pre-season, and now it's working. They know how to work with each other. So they've assisted each other's line breaks, one in the last game, one in this game. So I'm happy with that, and it's nice to see that a good performance, probably not even our best performance of the season, but has been rewarded with a win, because we badly needed a win. We couldn't, if we'd have been 0 from 4, where do we go from there? But it's nice to get the W on the board. And shout out Johan Lloyd. Sam Costello is my favourite player, but Johan Lloyd had a great performance at 10. Last year when we played in Cap, I went down the stats and there was like 5 players who had statistically amazing games. Like all their numbers were really high. And it's kind of this as well. I think it's a real case of styles make fights between Cardiff and Scarlets, and I think something about the artificial pitch at Cap. It was a sellout crowd as well, by the way. A lot of Scarlets fans were there, and just the way that the two teams match up to each other in terms of their strengths and weaknesses, I think it just suits a lot of our players, and I think Johan Lloyd typifies that. Playing against Cardiff is his perfect game, and it really worked for him. And he's a massively underrated goal kicker as well. His goal kicks that he's taking on are hard kicks, and he's nailing them. So fair play to him on that. Alan, you caught this game as well. What was your outsider's view of it?
I enjoyed it. I actually really enjoyed it for a Welsh game. I thought it was. I was really happy that the Scarlets won. I've got a few Scarlets friends, but it was pretty close at the end. Yeah, I was
We
like,
all know it's just a
For a
second.
Welsh game, I was like, yeah, it was all right. Yeah, it was all right.
That's how I act about the English teams, to be honest. I shouldn't really laugh.
This is all because I said the Curry Cup was silly in the group chat, and Alan had a go at me for about 2 hours.
And the mental scores in the Premiership, which just continued to go on and on and on, and no one cared. No, one cares
but it
about
was
that.
a really good game, and I do, like I said, I do have a lot of friends who support the Scarlets, and one of them came and visited after the game, and he was actually quite happy with the win. But even when I was messaging him, he was saying, "Oh, they're going to lose it. They're going to lose it." And I was like, "No, you beat the All Blacks once." So,
You did. That is true.
Yeah, I know. I looked it up after you said, but so really happy with the game. Big game next week for them. So, what do you think, Hugh? What do you think about the Scarlets playing the Bulls?
I will get into it more in the previews, but I'm worried. Last moment I want to call out, in case, I don't know if Caolan and Ben, you've seen this, Blair Murray's try-saving tackle on Gabriel Hamer-Webb.
Oh yes, I think I've seen this shirt.
So this is, or was, please work for me. This was a 2-on-1. So this is when the Scarlets are down to 13 again, as you can see from the 2 in the yellow box. And Ben Thomas, who I think that Ben Thomas, if I give props to the Cardiff people listening, Ben Thomas is probably the best player in Wales at the moment for me. He's a real class act, and I think if only Gatland would pick him in his best position, I think Wales would be onto a winner. So if I could find this bloody clip again that I had queued up and then it failed on me. But basically, Ben Thomas makes the line break. He's got no one in front of him. Scarlets have overcommitted in the midfield whilst 2 men down. And
for anyone who's on audio, I'm just having to look at the fucking highlights of the Munster match. Anyways, here it is.
So here it is. So if we go, wait for it to go back to the beginning. So
commentary.
Ben Thomas is through, but Blair Murray doesn't commit. Blair Murray knows that Johan Nicholas is coming across to cover Ben Thomas, so he stays. He's facing the touchline. He positions himself facing the touchline, and then gets over to Hamer-Webb. Hamer-Webb probably should do better. I thought he was quicker than this, but then Blair Murray just comes, absolutely nails him into touch, and it's one of those where his foot just grazes the whitewash.
Someone said it. I don't know who it was. The grounding is so good with one hand. Yeah. Like if he scores that, we're talking about what a finish.
Yeah. It's coming up now for people listening on audio. It's probably a YouTube moment, but it's just, for me, Blair Murray hasn't scored for the Scarlets yet, but this is better than any try he'll score this season. This bit of defense, that is proper, typical Kiwi, just knows how to play rugby, Anyway, so that's the end of that one. So what was I on to next? So Benetton Sharks. We won't linger on this too long. Benetton, the last team that were winless, they now have their win, fairly comfortable. If you look at the stats, it was a very counter-attacking performance. Not a lot of territory, not a lot of possession from Benetton, but their good players turned up. Jacob Umaga had a lot better game than he's had lately.
He had a terrible start to the season, which I was really, really quite shocked by how bad he was, especially against Glasgow. He was embarrassing. So yeah, good to see him turn a corner. I was surprised by how the size of the win actually, but yeah, they needed to win because they've been as bad as Edinburgh at the start of the season, I think, Benetton, and surprisingly so, considering how they finished last year.
Yeah, Rhino Smith also had a great game. I did a stats job on him earlier. Really good numbers. Really, probably is he like the best not capped player in the URC?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, like who else is uncapped? And like you don't want to put in
there was
young
the
players.
one Bulls guy, the one come from Exeter. Was he from Exeter?
Cobus Visa.
Yeah, he's pretty good as well. He was he had a really good game. But when he played for Exeter, I think he was a pretty good player. But Rayner Smith probably is.
Is he South African? Is he South African? Isn't he? Is that right?
Yeah,
South
yeah,
African.
yeah.
But
Would
he qualify for Italy soon?
I think he moved to Italy like the day after it went from 3 years to 5, and so he's just, But he's playing great rugby.
Yeah.
Sharks, though, are the Caolan back on fraud watch for you?
100%. I took them off fraud watch a bit too quickly, I think. This is well, sorry, I didn't officially take them off it, but I kind of did during the Connacht game, and then I was like, no, never mind. Thankfully, I never updated the list, that kind of thing. They shouldn't be this bad. They had Connacht beaten. They should have lost the Dragons. They got hockeyed by Benetton. That's not the 3 toughest away games in the URC. I know there's no easy games, but that's not the 3 toughest. You've got some unbelievable players, and to parrot a point we've used before, it does feel like going for big money signings is not the way to go when you have no consistency. You need to go in the other direction and get some more, consistent guys who are there week in, week out. They've signed poorly. Estezen's doing all right, to be fair. He's a quality player, but they've signed poorly. They just don't, and they look poorly coached at times. They look like a team lacking a bit of identity, which is frustrating. Good win for Benetton, don't get me wrong. To give them their dues, it's a good win for them. But yeah, the Sharks, it's hard to see them making top 8 this year.
Sia Masuku's not going well at the moment. He was the saviour this time at the end of last season, which isn't this time at all. But he was good, and now he's not.
Yeah. Are we on to the last game?
Well, this is the thing. This is the awkward moment now of the podcast where we have to talk about a game that was, by all accounts, very good, but none of us actually watched.
I can save us. I didn't see this. I was still in Croke Park when this game kicked off, but I can save us. Adam Latham, Ulster fan. I decided to give him a message. He got back to me in time. So he has given me a brief thoughts on this one. So for people who didn't see, 5 tries for Ulster, 4 tries for Connacht. Ulster pipped it in the end, 32-26, I think it was, or something in around that.
5-point game. It was 32-27.
Yeah, that adds up actually.
Very late penalty from Connacht. Yeah.
Very late penalty from Josh Ioane. The swinging moment of this game is Josh Murphy gets sent off. Now it's second yellow. Most people I spoke to thought it was a red.
So definitely a red. Yeah.
I haven't seen the incident. I can't comment. Look, another open game, as Adam said, it's very loose. He said, most of the tries almost came from defensive errors, like the Ben Murphy try. Well taken, but so much space to run into. Connacht, a very imperfect team, I think, continues to be said. But Ioane misses penalty. Misses a penalty kick. And he missed one to touch. And that allowed Ulster back into it. Obviously, there's that red card. That swung the momentum. It was a very physical game. Again, something I was going to get onto earlier about HIAs. I'm worried with the amount of HIAs we've seen recently. It feels like rugby has swung back in the opposite direction again and has got overtly physical. And look, I know there's a lot of HIAs just for precautionary checks. I still don't like the look of it. I think it's a very bad look at the moment. But anyways, can't comment too much. It's a game I didn't get to see. The general consensus is maybe 2 very incomplete teams. But Ulster don't like to lose in Ravenhill. Their 2 wins this season have been in Ravenhill. That's massive for them. And they still have to get back in the likes of, James Hume's going to miss half the season. They have to bring back in the likes of Cormac Izuchukwu, Harry Sheridan, Scott Wilson, Rob Herring, Tom Stewart. That's going to improve them. I think they will go places. I think Connacht have a couple of cracks to iron out. Their defence in particular. They've conceded an average of 3 tries a game, I'd say, at this stage, if not more. 4 to Munster, 5 to Ulster, 2 to the Scarlets, I think, if I'm right, and 3 to the Sharks. So it's high enough. No defensive sluggerfest yet. Now they have Leinster coming up, which will be my game of the week, but a good win for Ulster. If I'm an Ulster fan, I'm happy just to get the win in that one.
For sure. 2 from 4 for Ulster, not so bad. I still, like you, I agree. I think they've got space to their ceiling. I think they're on an upward trajectory. With Connacht, the worry is always is this their ceiling? Is this as good as they're going to get this season? That's always...
I do have that concern, especially in attack. because I feel like there's been an awful lot of like running through massive holes in defenses. Like Ben Murphy has he's taken his try as well. Don't get me wrong, but like he scored a similar try against Munster where there was a cricket field to run into, and as the season goes on and teams tighten up, will Connacht adapt? Last year they didn't, and as we've seen, they were one injury away from their attack becoming blunt. Would it be the same this year? Would be the concern.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so apologies to Ulster and Connacht fans. Probably this game being scheduled to overlap with the Leinster-Munster game, probably a bit of an own goal from the TV schedule.
And the fact that I was there. If I would have covered it otherwise, but I was in Dublin, so that one's on me.
Yeah, so. Dual screening, but one of the screens was real life.
There we go. And the other screen was me just scrolling on TikTok because I wasn't happy with the match.
Okay, right. Hi everyone, Hugh here. We got to the end of the podcast and the guys told me that we forgot to cover Dragons Lions, so I'm just going to do it really quickly right now. So Sunday afternoon kickoff, I actually quite like rugby on a Sunday, to be fair. I find that when there's only 1 or 2 games that you can watch on a day, it's less stressful for a person who watches tons of rugby. Dragons, another one of those games where they show some nice stuff. They play decently, but they just managed to find a way not to win, and they just run out of puff almost. I thought the Lions, we think of them as a fun, jouet, chuck the ball around team, which they are. Quite a professional performance, quite a calm and cool, collected performance. Looked quite comfortable. Gave up a couple of tries, yes, but just always looked like they were going to win it for me. Quan Horn, great player. Sanelli Nahamba came off the bench, played well. So just a professional job getting the points on the board for the Lions. They've got Zebra in the next game, so I expect them to pick up another win there. You would back them to anyway. Dragons, it's just frustrating. They beat the Ospreys in the first game, and they've had an okay-ish fixture list. Leinster aside, just be disappointed. Another game where you can say played well, not won, and Scarlets have been in that position for a good season and a bit now, and it just seems to be the perpetual state of the Dragons. They've definitely gotten better though. Definitely gotten better. Physicality has stepped up. Defense has stepped up. Organization. Definitely that game, if played last year, they would have lost by a good couple of scores. So I think going in the right direction. Their signings have made a great impact. I think Shane Lewis-Hughes has been fantastic for them. I think Harrison Keddy has been fantastic as well. Just, it'll come. It'll come. They just need a bit more luck to go their way, really. And for the Lions, undefeated so far this season. I'm fascinated to see how far they can go. I'm sorry you didn't get Alan's view on it because all the chaps have jumped off now, leaving me to just catch this one back. But yeah, we'll talk about the Lions a bit more on the next pod because exciting team, love watching them, love their players, and yeah, they're looking set for a playoff position already this season, which is fantastic to see. Anyway, back to the show. So before we move on to our predictions, if people have gotten this far into the podcast, you're clearly enjoying it. The numbers have gone quite well for the United Rugby Rewind on YouTube so far, so if you'd like to join us on the journey, if you could hit that subscribe button and maybe share a link to the video with a friend, it would massively help us out, and we are well on course to being able to monetize the show, which at the moment will just go towards covering the costs because we're currently paying money to make it. So if you could help us out, maybe balance the books a little bit, that would be a rare thing in rugby, so we'd appreciate the support. Okay, so moving into predictions. Games of the week. Alan, what's your game of the week coming up?
Let me just see here. I think it was the Stormers are playing Munster. So that's obviously a massive game, isn't it, for both teams? Stormers are at home, so it's their first home game in Cape Town. Munster will be really keen to bounce back from the game against Leinster, so they both are going to be itching for that one. I predict a Munster win by about... well, let's go 10 points. I think the Stormers are really going to struggle. They're too disjointed at the moment and too messy. So I think that's going to probably be my game of the week coming up.
Do you back that prediction, Caolan?
Look, I'm going to predict Munster to win most games this season, kind of similar to what I feel about like Leinster or Glasgow or the Bulls. The big thing for Munster is don't lose the tight 5 battle again as efficiently as they did. Like Tadhg, I hate to say it, Tadhg's like the best last 3 or 4 games for Munster have all been losing efforts. He was really good on Saturday, like everywhere again. The big thing is though that attack, it's working. The system is there. Just win your collisions. Give the team more options. It can't be screen, pull back pass after pull back pass. Needs more options, needs more impetus. I think Munster will blood a few players in this tour due to injuries. Ronan Fox potentially someone like Sean Adogbo. If he gets him in it, like, this kid is 20 years of age and he was sitting down Sheeta's Curry Cup players last week, so he could certainly do something if he gets to go. Ronan Fox, really good scrummager, but the raw materials are there. It's just players need to stand up and produce 1 or 2% more better performances as a collective, especially in that pack for me. I think that's the big one, and line out as well. But look, it's the Stormers. It's a rivalry, as Alan said, so it's going to be fierce, and like, both teams need a win. You can't afford to be. Stormers can't afford to be winless after this one. Munster can't afford to be 2 wins from that opening 5 games that they had.
For me, I only see the Stormers winning this if they just crash in all of their Springboks back in. Just in you go, boys, all of you at the same time. Just dig us out, and which is just Dobson all over. Put the good players in the team and see if they can just squeak a result by 1 point. Ben, what's your game of the week?
I've gone for Edinburgh Cardiff. I think we've got a pretty good record against Cardiff. I don't think we've lost to them for a good few years now. I'd expect us to win by at least 10-14, I think, next Saturday. I think if we continue in the vein that we did yesterday, and I think the signs are starting to suggest that we are starting to get a bit of a better cohesion, we should win. I think it's one of those games that I'd be very surprised if we don't win.
It would be.
I'm still not convinced. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say it would be a big result for Cardiff if they do win, because they've only really beaten Welsh at opposition and Zebra in the last season or so. So it would be actually quite a big moment for Cardiff if they do win this one.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced by Sean Everett, and I don't think I'm going to be convinced by him until something really serious.
I don't think the Sharks were either, and I don't think many South Africans are. So, but
it was very much a puddle as opposed to a pool when it came to the management available. We know when Mike Blair went, and Mike Blair did go quite suddenly. I understand when Mike Blair went. I think it was the right decision for him. He didn't want to be a head coach. I think he very humbly admitted it was probably a bit beyond his capability as a coach, and he wanted to go back to just being specifically focused on attack, and now he's doing that in Japan. But I still think with Everett, there's a little bit of arrogance there that I don't really like, and I know we kind of talked about stuff, but the way he's treated Ben Healy this last week that's not good leadership to me. I don't think it was fair. I think Edinburgh's attack against Lions was ponderous across the park. It wasn't down to 10. It was down to a multitude of, the phase play not working, the whole rugby league kind of attitude of, kind of like stopping play, just waiting to be tackled because, it's coming towards the end of the game. That was essentially the last 15 minutes of Edinburgh, Lions the week before. So I still think there's a lot for Sean Everett to work on, and I think there's that lack of sort of understanding of that it's his responsibility as to how the club's doing. Yeah. And I saw it in his presser, Brian post yesterday. I still think he doesn't seem to understand that actually it's down to me to get a wealth of international talent playing cohesively, because Edinburgh are stacked with international players, and that should on paper that's a top 8 team every season. I think there's not too much difference between Glasgow and Edinburgh. The difference is, like I've said every week, is the management. Glasgow's management has been absolutely fantastic since Franco Smith came in. Considering where Glasgow were before Franco Smith came in, it was a disaster under the previous management. They went backwards at a rate of knots that I hadn't seen a club go that far back since in the URC, Pro 14, Pro 12, whatever guys it was under. So I do worry about Sean Everett. I just don't think he's got that tactical mouse there that can really get Edinburgh to crack on. And yesterday the Storm was there for the taking. Fortunately, we did so, but I do worry about us coming up against sterner opposition that kind of can strangle us, because the first 20 minutes yesterday, our play was very narrow. And that's what I get worried about. There doesn't seem to be that plan B, plan C there just yet. But I think Cardiff, again, a team that we really should be putting away on 9 out of 10 occasions. And I think there'll be the ability to maybe try a few different things. But I need to see that. I just don't think we've got that yet, and I need to see it before I'm confident about our end of season chances.
And Caolan, Munster's already gone, so what's your game of the week?
I think by law, by rules of this podcast, I have to go with the Edinburgh. So it is Leinster against Connacht this weekend. I can't remember who's at home. Just give me 2 seconds, and I remember that. I think it's in the sports ground. I just need to double check.
Connacht.
Yeah, it's in the Dexcom, I should say. it's a weird one. I could see Leinster rotating for this one.
Definitely.
I really could, and going back up to speed for the Lions the following week in Dublin. Because this is the game they typically rotate for. Now, that flies in the face of the argument I made earlier about front loading very early on the season. But sorry, I'm watching a match at the same time, and Ireland nearly scored in the soccer. Anyways, we'll see. We'll wait and see how Leinster go. I think my big concern for Connacht is how are they going to manage against an elite defense, because they're going up against the best defense in the league so far this season. In Leinster, yes, there's been a couple of hiccups like that Edinburgh game, for example, but will Connacht have the opportunities to live off of? I don't think they will. I think Leinster will win this. I'll just get it out of the way now. I think Leinster will get the job done here and go 5 from 5. The selection is a big one. I can see them definitely rotating, but they have a lot of injuries. Like, they're starting to pile up now. They're down Kelleher, Sheehan, and potentially Lee Barron. They're without Joe McCarthy. I would be surprised if Fergus Neyman starts this game, because that would be 3 games in a row, and he doesn't do that. They're without Jack Conan, it looks like, and Ryan Baird. They're without. They might bring back in an out half like Prendergast maybe and move Frawley around, because they're without Robbie Henshaw. Jimmy O'Brien missed last week. Jordan Larmer. So it's interesting. Maybe they don't have the scope to rotate this week. That's the other side of it. So if they don't, definitely would be back in Leinster on that one.
Yeah, it'd be good for the league if Connacht got a win. To be fair, I would
Absolutely.
enjoy that.
I will always support that.
For Lee's game of the week, he picked Scarlets Bulls. As a Scarlets fan, it's scary. This Bulls squad is very scary, and they're one of those teams where it's like, what do you worry about first? Do you worry about the scrum that's going to just shunt you into next week, or do you worry about Willie LaRue and Curtly Aronson? It's like what does the team meeting look like beforehand? It's like, okay, I'll mark Willie LaRue and you mark Curtly Aronson. Okay, who's marking Caden Moody? Oh, shit. Eddie, you mark Caden Moody. I'll mark Aronson and you mark Willie LaRue. Okay, who's marking Papier? Okay, right. Okay, you mark Papier. Right, it's just like that. I don't think you can just account for them. I think it's a good test. It's a bit of a write-off for the Scarlets. A lot of Scarlets fans, when this fixture was announced, were just assuming that the Bulls would send up the B team. But because they've sent up all the box, it's like, I think it's going to be one of those games where you're going to hear the word learn quite a lot before and after and test and words like that. So nervous. Of course, on the Scarlets pod, I'll be picking a Scarlets victory, but I think that the Bulls have got the tools to turn over almost anybody in this league, and quite handily. All we can rely on is that they just don't rock up, in that they're not up for it, because
they just it rains.
yeah, exactly. So worried is the word. So just to quickly nudge on the other games that we haven't mentioned, Ulster Ospreys. Caolan, what's your prediction for that one?
Ulster at home, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Ulster at home.
I'll go with Ulster in that one. I'll back them at home most games of the season. If probably every game of the season, I'll probably back them at home, if I'm honest. Ospreys need a response, as we kind of said. They haven't really done much. Ulster, the big thing is just more injuries. Like, they lost Ian Henderson the other night. They lost, I think Jude Bostwick got injured. Now, he went off early. I'm not 100% sure. I just assume he got injured. So they're starting to add up, but I'd still back Ulster. I think Ulster could get a bonus point win here. The Ospreys have been pretty poor, if we're honest. It's been a very deflating start to the season for them.
The worry about the Ospreys start to the season is they've pretty much had their first choice team available, and now they've started to pick up injuries. So that's adversity for you. Ben, are you going Zebra? Zebra versus Lions. Interesting game, that. Which way are you going?
Lions will win that. I think Zebra have had their win of the season. I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, I want to, the lack of attacking. I mean, the territory against points was the difference was remarkable on Friday, and I just think against a team that's defensively sound like the Lions have been so far this season, I can't see Zebra getting much change out of that game. So I'll say Lions by at least 14 points. I think
it is quite a vibes matchup, though. I'd like to see Nahamba start this one because I think it's going to be madness. Alan, Sharks versus Glasgow in Durban.
I think I'm going to go with Glasgow for that one. I think Glasgow are. I think the Sharks are they're bringing the Springboks back, I think, so they're going to all be back for that game. But
that's a bit of a sleeper of a game, to be honest.
So I think, but I'm going to give it to Glasgow by about 5 points. I think there's going to be a little bit of disruption with changes to this team and even with the box. So let's go with Glasgow by about 5 points.
Yeah, and then Dragons Benetton. That's an interesting game on paper. Again, it's interesting to see what team Benetton send over. Dragons are doing the Dragons thing of looking good for a lot of games, but still they check the scoreboard at the end and they've lost.
Every game has been close, but that's the only thing. They probably felt like they needed to turn over another one.
Yeah. So another interesting game. It's a good round of fixtures, this one. Round 5. There's no formalities in there. Looking forward to it. Okay, and to round up the show, I have found the Curtly Aronsir second try against the Ospreys. So I thought we'd watch that, all enjoy Valillaru's kick, and then wave goodbye to the lovely people. So here it goes for audio listeners. Papier's passing the ball to Nokia, and it's in buffering. It's back again.
There we go. Oh,
Moody's through the hole.
Fuck.
And Curtly Aronsir in the corner.
You don't defend
that.
that.
You like.
That is, as we would say, tidy.
Liquid rugby. Okay, enjoyed the show, lads, and I hope everybody else enjoyed as well. Remember, like, subscribe, 5-star review, all the things. Comment below and we'll reply to you and have a conversation. And we'll see you again next week. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, everyone.
That was the United Rugby Rewind. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can, and join us next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.